The next topic that we're going to be talking about in our course is objects. You use objects in JavaScript to group related data and functions together. So the best way for us to learn about objects is to think about a real-world object. So a real-world object that I might want to tell you about is a car, for instance. So if I wanted to describe my car to you, you might want to ask me things like, well, what type of car is it? And I might say, well, it's a VW. And then you might say, well, what's the make of the car? And I might say, it's a Bug. And then you might ask me, what year was the car made? So the year of my car is going to be 1965. And then you might ask me, what color is the car? And I would say that the car is mint green. And you might ask me if there was any distinguishing features of the car. So this car that I'm talking about is a ragtop. So these would all be different descriptions that I could give you that would start to give you a clear indication of what the car is. And we can think of all of this data that's related to the car object as being properties of the car. So JavaScript works the same way. You can basically take data that's related to a specific object and you can translate that into a JavaScript object by telling JavaScript that this group of data that we've acquired all relates to the same element. And how we group that data together is that we turn the element into an object. So if I wanted to turn my car into an object, I would need to use the proper syntax that JavaScript would understand in order to describe this particular object. The first thing I could do here is I would create a variable, and I'm going to call my variable my car. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my equal sign, and then I'm going to wrap all of the properties that describe my car inside of curly braces. So this is similar to what we've been doing. We're just creating a variable called my car. We're making it equal to something, and instead of using square braces like we did with arrays, when we're creating an object, we're going to use curly braces. And inside of the curly braces, we're going to set up the various properties. So every single bit of description that we're using to describe this object is called a property. And you can think that a car has a lot of different properties, and what we're going to do is when we separate the properties, we're going to need to use commas in between each of the properties. And we don't have to use a comma on the last property because it's the last one. But if I want to go ahead and add in multiple properties, I would use commas. And just to make it a little bit easier to read, we would usually indent if we want to set up our objects in this way. That's not necessary, but it just makes it a little bit easier and a little more tidy to be able to see what's going on. Every property is going to be followed by a colon, and then what we're going to do is we're going to assign a value to that property. So we have property value pairs that we're going to be using. So we always put the name of the property followed by a colon, and then we're going to put the value of that property. And because in this case, this information is a string, I would need to surround that information inside of quotes. Now, the year value, I don't need to surround inside of quotes because this is a numeric value. So that one would not require that I use quotation marks. So if I set up this object and write it in this way, when I hit return, I now have created a object called my car. And if we ask the console for my car, it's going to give us all of the properties and go ahead and tell us what the values are for each of those properties. So it's going to print out the object with all of the properties. So when we ask for my car, we're going to get the entire object. Now, some cases, you're going to want to get a specific part of the object. And to do that, we're going to use something called dot notation. So if I wanted to just get the make of my car, I would type my car dot make. And now it's just going to return the value of the make property, which in this case is Bug. Or if I typed my car dot color, it's going to just give me the value that's assigned to the color property. When you want to create an object, you're creating a group or a set of related data that describes that particular object or that thing. This set of related data is assigned to its single object, and in this case our object is called my car, but all of these properties are individual elements that make up the more detailed description of what that object is.